Very much, and also thank you to Anders and Anders for inviting me to come here today, or for inviting us, I'd rather say, because it's not that they invited me specifically. They invited the Danish Board of Technology Foundation to be here today, and we're very happy that we were invited. And well, eventually I came because I've been talking to Anders and Anders about this specific project called Asset and how we can maybe do some online engagement in this project. But before I go into my slides, I just want to say briefly to those of you who don't know the Danish Board of Technology Foundation is that I actually think that what you were talking with Mikkel about is the perfect introduction to what we do. How do we get citizens involved in figuring out how to do better in all kinds of different areas? Smarter cities, new technological developments, scientific questions, all kinds of budgets now I lost the English word. The Kommune is municipality. Exactly, thank you very much. So citizens know a lot and can do a lot and should be, in our opinion, involved a lot more in those types of processes. So that's very briefly what the Danish Board of Technology Foundation stands for in this project. So we have a lot of different projects. But this project is a European project. It has a long, complicated name, but our logo, our slogan is "Share and Move to Face Nasty Bugs," that you can remember. So it's about working together with all kinds of different stakeholders and trying to figure out how we can do better in situations of pandemics or epidemics. I guess most of you remember the H1N1 hysteria, I would maybe call it, and Tamiflu maybe even rings more of a bell in terms of how there was produced a lot of vaccines in response to worries that we would all soon be dead because of this epidemic. And eventually what happened is that all of these vaccines ended up somewhere in a storage room and were never really used, and they were spent a lot of money on them. So the question in Asset is, how can we do better? Like, how can we develop better preparedness plans? And our role in this project is, well, at least one part we should do is to ask the bigger group that are affected by these problems how they think we could do better and what their ideas is. I mean, vaccination is a hot topic out there in the public, different publics. Okay, so that's part of the Asset project. But in the Danish Board of Technology, we actually sat down and we talked about, well, this idea of public engagement of the public using online tools in some sense. It's not just something that we're interested in the Asset project, but it's something that we're interested in generally. And we haven't really engaged with it so far because we have a number of quality criteria actually when we talk about public engagement, and we're wondering if online engagement actually lives up to those, or what kind of quality criteria you could develop so that we don't just do something online, but what we do online is good. And I'll explain to you in my presentation what I mean with good public engagement. Yeah, that's the challenge that I've brought, of course. Now I've already asked the question, how we can create good online public engagement. It's the challenge that I've brought with me today to the TANT-Lab, and also, of course, to the students, because Anders and Anders asked me, so Techno-Anthropology students, if they are going to come work with you, what would you like them to be able to do? And we would like them to be able to help us with this question. Because what is actually public engagement? For us, it's something very specific. It is the active involvement of citizens in decision-making processes. So it is not, for example, a lecture, so one-way communication, trying to convince the public that you are right and they are wrong. That is not what we mean with public engagement at the Danish Board of Technology. We mean actually engaging in a conversation with the citizens about their ideas and their thoughts, their experiences, and not just that, but also listening back and forth. So that's what we mean, and it can be about all kinds of different topics, as I already mentioned. I have put some pictures here that show different areas in which we are engaging the public in the projects that we have at the moment. So, for example, on the big EU framework program, Horizon 2020, we're running a big project called Simulact that is designed to engage the European public in figuring out what research priorities should be for the next coming years. Of course, citizens should be heard. It's public money going into all of these research projects. And also the Asset project is there with the H1N1 vaccine picture. And there was a question, I think it was in the first panel, can we imagine this type of methods going big? That was for Tina, I think. And yes, we can, because I have actually with me the picture from a recent exercise, you can say, or activity that we had, the Worldwide Views. And that was a global citizen engagement exercise that we did. June 6th this year we had, I think it was around 76, but don't hang me on the number, citizen meetings all around the world, in I think 97 countries eventually, on climate and energy. And our co-director is actually right now at this moment in Paris at the COP21 trying to bring the citizens' opinions to the policymakers there. For of course they should also be heard in this type of question that affects us all. And why should we do? I've already explained it, of course, why public engagement is so important. Morally, of course, because publics have a right to be involved in decisions and discussions on solutions and problems that affect them. You could even say that's also a democratic argument. Instrumentally, of course, public involvement increases the legitimacy of processes. Substantially, the public also, surprisingly maybe to some, holds valuable knowledge about the world that they live in. It might look differently from the world that other stakeholders live in. And the knowledge that they hold is also valuable to finding the best solutions and can actually improve the outcome of, for example, innovation processes. Now, finally, this question: what is good public engagement then? Because, as I already said, it's not just any type of exercise that you might imagine that we think is a good public engagement exercise. It's a process that's transparent. So, when you ask the public to be a part of something, it should be clear what's happening when, and where does their input go, and how is it used to make decisions, and who makes those decisions, and how is the weighing process. That's transparency. So you're not manipulating, but you are working together. Inclusive, that's something I think we didn't talk so explicitly about yet, but for us it's very important that when you do public engagement exercises, you work very hard to be representative. So to include a broad range of the public, so not just a specific interest group or the ones that always complain, but also the ones that might have a hard time having their voice heard normally in public debate should be part of these exercises. And impact, of course, yes, this is the world we live in. For a good public engagement exercise, you should plan for impact, and you should also have a plan to have some political buy-in. You need some powerful stakeholders to back you up. The process should also be adaptive, of course. If you, during your process, learn that some things might not be working optimally, or you could do better, you should of course be ready to learn from your mistakes. Well timed, well, it's so that most of the time the best time to have a public engagement exercise is early on in the process, because then things are easier to change. Later on, many decisions have been made, maybe investments have been done, and it's harder to shift things radically at least. So think about the timing when you want to do a public engagement exercise. And also, of course, there's this point about proportion. So, I mean, what is the type of issue that you have at hand? Maybe you can do it by just inviting us into a smaller exercise. You might not need to go globally like we did in the Worldwide Views, but, you know, the method should also fit sort of your goal. And then, I'm not done. There was a process, but a good public engagement event is also something specific. So I said already, it's not, for example, a lecture, but to us it's a meeting, and it's a meeting where people actually sit down and talk with each other, have time to listen to each other. It's based on, so before they have this meeting, they have been informed, these people, about the topics at stake, but they haven't just been informed, you know, by someone with a certain point of view, but they have been informed by a piece of material that is scientifically informed, but well balanced in the sense that it also takes into account different representations and perspectives on a problem. That's of course a hard thing to do, but we try our best. Then at the meeting themselves, the meetings are moderated, and that's very important, because at these tables you will have a representative excerpt of citizens. So you will have some very strong citizens with a lot of resources. You will have someone representing weaker groups. So that's why you need to moderate very well a discussion as such, to have everyone have a chance to have their say. And of course also ideally to have people learn from each other as well. So how can you do this public engagement exercises? So I showed you the meetings, but actually there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different methods out there for how you could do public engagement exercises. And I just took this screenshot this morning, which is from a project called Engage 2020, which is a project that we coordinate. It's creating an overview of public engagement methods. And so, as you can see, there are a lot of different, and you can choose here like which parameters you would like the method to live up to in terms of your exercise goals, skills, all kinds of stuff. You can go have a look at it yourself. Okay, but for the asset project itself, our challenge is, of course, that we're working in a specific problem context, so pandemics or epidemics. There's 3 phases: a pre-outbreak, you're in an outbreak situation, or a post-outbreak situation. And this is where we've talked to Anders and Anders. Okay, so we have, if those of you knowing EU projects, a work package, and it's already very neatly described what we're supposed to do. And in that work package, it doesn't mention online methods actually. But we would like to experiment with online methods because, well, in an outbreak situation, for example, physical meetings might not be a very good idea. So we do want to develop methods that could also be used in a situation like that. However, we are in the situation that in the big overview of the many methods that we created, we don't have a lot of tools in our toolbox for doing something online. So that's why we are having this collaboration. So back to my challenge again, and I think almost on the minute, is how can we create good online public engagement that is transparent, all the things I mentioned, inclusive, has impact, is adaptive, is well-timed, well-proportioned, and deliberative. Thank you very much.